Welcome to the show. My guest today is Brad Montgomery, the Director of Pre-Sales Engineering of the Dell EMC Federal Data Protection Solutions Division. Brad, welcome to the discussion.
Thanks, Jason. Happy to be here.
Let me set some context for our discussion today. Over the last several years, the Government Accountability Office has made more than 2,700 recommendations aimed at improving federal systems and networks. As of May, GAO says about 800 of those have not been implemented. And then there's a litany of security breaches, from the most dramatic, the Office of Personnel Management, we all know about that, to the lesser known ones, maybe at places like the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. But nearly every federal agency continues to struggle to protect its systems and networks, and thus really its data. And the bad guys are getting a lot smarter too. They're stealing sensitive but unclassified data, piecing that information together to potentially get to secret and top secret levels. OMB has done several things over the last few years, including the 2015 Cyber Sprint, to help shore up some of the most critical information, but of course more needs to be done. The administration detailed a series of goals to improve federal cybersecurity over this last few months. These include meeting a series of objectives by 2020, such as implementing at least 4 of 6 intrusion detection and prevention tools, such as having all email traffic analyzed using domain-based message authentication, reporting, and conformance email authentication, or DMARC protocols. OMB also wants to have at least 5 of 7 data protection metrics implemented at 90% of all agencies, again, by 2020. The latest data from OMB shows agencies are making a lot of progress. 7 agencies are now fully using DMARC. 6 agencies are meeting all their data protection metrics. But even with this minimal progress, there's still a lot that needs to be done, including the better use of threat intelligence to make decisions and a more focused approach on mitigating risks. And once again, that's where my guest comes in, Brad Montgomery, the Director of Pre-Sales Engineering of the Dell EMC Federal Data Protection Solutions Division. Brad, let me start with some basics. This whole focus on cybersecurity, it's not true. It's not new. Mm-hmm. It's definitely needed. And really, it's what's been the linchpin, the underpinning of a lot of this IT modernization, a lot of these efforts to transformation. Maybe give me a sense of how these two things work together, cybersecurity, IT modernization.
All right, thanks, Jason. I love that intro. One of the things I want to establish right off the bat is that regardless of where an agency's data lives, whether it's legacy physical servers, whether it's in a virtualized environment, whether it's in the cloud or some kind of combination of all three, data protection is paramount. And we're seeing risks increase. We have the traditional risks. We have natural disasters. We've seen that with flooding that's happened in our area. We have corruption that can still happen within file systems. We still have that human error element to it. The end user who deletes a file and then realizes 30 days later that they need to recover that data. And compounded on top of that is the malicious actors, right? The hackers that gain access to your system, want to steal data and then delete the data. Ransomware as well. These are all concerns that our government customers have, and it really helps to elevate the data protection conversation within our customer sets. I mean, one of the things I like to, an analogy I like to use is that of sunscreen, right? You don't go to the beach without sunscreen on. Likewise, you don't introduce your mission critical data to risk by not having a sound data protection strategy.
It's a great analogy for many reasons. One, we have all been sunburned, right? So we get that, we can kind of relate to it. And I find it interesting that when you talk about data protection, I remember years ago, I want to say the Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper, talked about destruction. A really key concern now for the intelligence community was this idea of data destruction. And that was the first time you started to hear that word. It's not just I'm going to take your data, but I'm going to change it or destroy it. Is that resonating now more? Here we are 3, 4, 5 years later?
Oh, it absolutely is. And when you look at how the bad guys are attacking our data, oftentimes the first thing that they will target is an agency's backups. They'll target the backup applications, they'll target the backup storage, and after they have inflicted damage, after they have deleted the backup data or expired the backup data, the customer has no avenue to recover, and then they can target the production data and really put the mission at risk.
You're making me a little scared now, right? Okay, what do I do with my data? How do I back it up? So talk a little bit about the IT modernization, how that fits in, because as agencies modernize, the whole goal under the Obama administration, for instance, was, again, linchpin around cyber. That's how they got Congress to buy in to create the Modernizing Government Technology Act to really push forward with some other authorities. where does the IT modernization, how's that fit in? Because we don't hear a lot about cyber these days
Right.
related to IT modernization.
Yeah, well, without a doubt, you hit the nail on the head. All agencies need to have a sound data protection strategy. Now, when it comes to modernization, one important point is that most federal agencies are in a transition period between brownfield and greenfield applications. So a sound data protection strategy needs to be able to bridge that gap. We still need to be able to protect the legacy physical environment, but we also need to be able to address the new data sets, the virtualization, the cloud, and so on. From a Dell EMC data protection perspective, I see three key areas that we need to address in order to fully modernize our data protection. The first one is on efficiency. We need to get the backups done faster. We need to send less data across the wire. We need to reduce the use of our infrastructure to get the backups done. All right? And of course, we need to reduce the amount of infrastructure required to keep those backups on site. Second is simplicity. One of the issues that a number of our federal customers have is the complexity that's related to a legacy backup environment. It scales out horizontally, it's costly, leads to a lot of complexity. One area that Dell EMC is leading the way is on data protection appliances, and our new breed of hyper-converged data protection appliances that are simple to manage, simple to install, are really helping our customers reduce the amount of spend on infrastructure while meeting the SLAs that our customers are asking for. And the final push is on transparency. We want data protection to be transparent to the end user. When we ask our end users what they're looking for, it's two main things. It's self-service and it's automation. So any enterprise data protection plan needs to be able to meet that, to enable to provide those end users with the functionality that they're looking for.
Each of those, let's dig into that a little bit. Efficiency, the first thing comes to mind is cloud, of course, right? We can't have a conversation about IT modernization, cybersecurity without the cloud coming in. So I think that's where you're heading with that, is the idea of if agencies can move applications, move storage, move backup and recovery, whatever you want to the cloud, that begins at efficiency.
Yeah, that's a great point. And certainly Dell EMC recognizes the shift to the cloud because of the advantages that it brings. The first thing that we have to do is be able to support workloads that exist within the cloud. Now, what that means is that we have to support technologies that move less data. Deduplication is key to this. Also key to this is our ability to leverage object store, right? Put your data where it makes the most sense. All of our solutions should be software defined so that they can provide the same level of protection that you get on an on-premise solution to a cloud-based solution.
The second piece of this is simplicity. When I hear a lot from agencies is not just the efficiency part, less money, more capabilities, but they also hear the fact is we can shrink our data center, our data footprint. We don't need to keep so much hardware, less software. You mentioned software defined as an example. So talk maybe how simplicity also fits right into that cloud strategy side and the cyber side.
Sure, thanks. So from a simplicity standpoint, the cloud is going to be very useful for, one, helping us to minimize the amount of infrastructure needed on site. One key example is for agencies that are seeking to eliminate tape from their environment. Tape, as you know, has a long history within federal accounts, but it's also led to a lot of complexity. Unfortunately, many federal agencies have a requirement to keep their data, their backup data, for many years, 3, 5, 7 years. Right? So we can use the cloud where it makes sense. We can offload that aged data using the same efficiencies that we can provide in the data center with our deduplication and our compression, and move that up to the cloud where the access is going to be much less. So that's a capability, and it enables us to reduce the amount of infrastructure on-prem, enables our customers to check that cloud box, and also enables the cloud to be used in a way that it's most cost-effective for our customers.
And finally, third piece is transparency. And I think that really gets back to the cybersecurity, knowing what you have, where it lives, and what you're trying to protect. Maybe I'm looking at transparency from a different perspective, but you're maybe looking at it from the where your money is going and what you're doing with it.
Let me give an example, Jason. So when I talk about transparency, one of the key customers that we talk to are going to be the application owners. Application owners want a very tight grip of their data. And what this means is that when it comes to data protection, they don't want to have to work through a third-party application in order to have access to their data, which is what the traditional backup approach is. They want to be able to send their data in the most efficient manner possible to the protection storage where they know it's going to be guaranteed to be safe. So when it comes to transparency, we want to give the power back to the end users, to the application owners, to the vAdmins. And we want to still be able to meet the SLAs by giving the quick data protection and the ability to provide self-service and automation as part of that.
I think that's helpful because when I hear transparency, you hear so often the discussion is always around, for instance, what do you have? Where does it live? And not just from a hardware or a software perspective, from also the data. And I think opening that door of, okay, that's where my data is, this is where I can find it, and this is how I can access to it. So I think it's helpful. Give me a sense, is this these three things, as you laid them out, are you guys working with any federal agencies, any private sector organizations to kind of begin this implementation, or where is this already happening? Can you give me some examples?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, well, this is already happening. We have customers throughout the private sector that are implementing these technologies today and seeing true benefits. Again, I'll go back to the database example, enterprise databases, because this is one of the largest pain points that our customers have. On one hand, the DBAs want to control their data. On the other hand, the storage administrators need to be able to ensure that SLAs are being met. One particular customer that I spoke with recently has a very large SQL farm with large databases, 17 terabyte databases. Using their legacy solution, it was taking them over a day to get backups done. They had a very kludgy recovery process, and the SLAs were not being met. Now, with the technologies that Dell EMC is bringing to the table, the DBAs are able to control their backup and recovery. They're able to have visibility into where their data lived. They're able to set their SLAs and ensure that the SLAs were being met in accordance with the storage team. And most importantly, we got the backups done in an extraordinarily fast amount of time. We cut the backups down from 24 hours down to 2 hours. Right? And as the solution continues to work, we're seeing that number continue to go down. This is just one example. We have several examples where customers are seeing the positive results of this modernization.
That is really impressive. Obviously, 24 hours to 2 hours. I mean, that I can only imagine if someone, when they want to do backups, they were probably doing it on weekends or they were doing it on off days, holidays, when people weren't there, because I imagine that would slow down your system if you're waiting for that backup to finish. Is the benefit not just the quickness of the backups, but it's giving them back time on the network, it's giving them back access to their data more quickly? What are some of the other benefits that maybe we can't focus on?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question, because the side benefits of this capability are immense. Like I mentioned earlier, a traditional backup approach is very heavy on the infrastructure. It affects the production servers. It affects the network. It affects the amount of cycles that a agency employee has to address their business. When we are able to reduce the amount of time it takes to complete a backup, when we are able to reduce the amount of impact that it has to the infrastructure, that's real cost savings that we can return back to the agency, and that's more time that a agency employee has to divert their attention to more pressing matters, like, again, modernizing that IT infrastructure.
It's part of what we hear from this administration, moving from low-value work to high-value work. When you can do those backups more quickly and automatically, and we haven't gotten to automation much yet, but that's a great example. Brad, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we can continue this conversation. You're listening to the discussion Innovation in Government, sponsored by Carasoft on federalnewsradio.com and 1500 AM.